Life has its battles, sorrows and regrets, but in the shadows let us not forget. We who now gather know each other's pain. Kindness can heal us as we give, we gain. Sing now in friendship, this our heart's born song.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where our mission is to join together to create a nourishing, liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world. Or as we say in short, to create community, find meaning, and work for justice. Welcome to one and all. I want to begin as usual by embracing all that you bring with you this morning, all of your uniqueness, your unique beliefs, your background, your lifestyle, your experiences, your differences, everything that helps make you who you are is welcome here this morning. And as always, this is meant for those who hear me say it each Sunday, as well as those who might be hearing it for the first time this morning. You're equally as welcome and appreciated. And of course, it includes those of you who are streaming with us. We're also always glad to know that you're here. So welcome to one and all. Before we move forward with our service, I do want to point out that our Unity candle is lit once again here at the front of our service. This is something we do when a member has passed away during the week. And some of you may have heard, we got the news kind of late last week, so I wanted to go ahead and have this candle out in honor of Richard Norman Cleveland, who many of us know as Dick Cleveland, who died peacefully on Friday, November 16th at the age of 92. Memorial service is going to be announced sometime in the near future. I also regret to let you know that Elizabeth Keeler passed away yesterday morning after a brief bout under hospice care. We are going to have a memorial service for Elizabeth fairly soon, by request of the family. It is going to be next Saturday at 11 a.m. We'll try to get more word out during the week, but wanted to give you a chance to put that on your calendar now. And then a reminder that Floyd Curtis's memorial service will take place this Wednesday, the 28th, also here at 2:30. So lots of loss these past few days in our congregations of some very special people in our community. So let's just take a quick moment of quiet in their honor, if you will. Thank you. And wanted to just give everyone one more chance to sign up as a chalice lighter. This is something we've been doing all month, encouraging folks to become chalice lighters. This is a program that different members from different Unitarian Universalist churches contribute $20 3 times a year, and those are dispersed as grants to various projects that some of our friends in other churches, and maybe even our own, can use for a variety of growth purposes. We need to have about a third of our congregation signed up to be eligible to take advantage of those grants ourselves, which is a big number for us. I don't know what it is, 140 or something like that? What is it? We don't know? Well, anyway, it's a big number, and I think we're still looking for about 35 or so folks to sign up. So you can do that after our service, if you will. And if you are a chalice lighter, I understand there are cookies. Do we have cookies left, Stephanie? Plenty of cookies left for chalice lighters. If you want a cookie and aren't a chalice lighter, you can become a chalice lighter. And as an as an added incentive, I am giving away about an hour's worth of virtual reality experience for anyone who is a chalice lighter. We're doing a drawing at the end of every Sunday. We have 3 winners. Today's the last chance to win. So please become a chalice lighter, and you can go anywhere you can imagine in virtual reality. So hopefully that will get us to our goal. So let's take a few moments, as always, to greet one another. I hope that you will, as always, say hi to those that you look forward to seeing so much each Sunday. I hope you'll say hi to some folks maybe you haven't met yet. And if you are joining us for the first time, the one rule is that you don't be shy. Just a little. Just a little. Just those ones are really bright. There's 2 sets. There's 2 sets of them. That's okay. So before we have our chalice lighting, let's get our lighting right. I'm sorry, Todd. You didn't have to shut them off all the way. They were just so bright that I couldn't see. I thought maybe it was a Bruce Springsteen moment up here. Yeah, something like that. Does that help? Because I think you were wanting some light on the podium, right? Yeah, that's great. That's great for me. Can you see? Is that better, Susan? You need both sides, or? Thank you. So yes, let's go ahead and move forward with our chalice lighting now. Chalice is the symbol of our faith, the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need, and may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found. That's my favorite line.
We are all longing to go home to some place we have never been, a place half remembered and half envisioned. We can only catch glimpses of, from time to time, community. Somewhere there are people to whom we can speak with passion without having the words catch in our throats. Somewhere a circle of hands will open to receive us. Eyes will light up as we enter. Voices will celebrate with us whenever we come into our own power. Community means strength that joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter. a circle of healing, a circle of friends, someplace where we can be free.
Please rise in spirit and body to sing number 19, The Sun That Shines.
Invite forward our young and our young at heart for some time together. Something special to share with you. Good morning. So this is my bag of beliefs. We all have a bag of beliefs, and over our lifetime, we fill it up with ideas about family, ideas about plants, and ideas about animals. And those ideas come from our family and friends, and the movies we watch, and the books we read. And some people, it's really important to them what is in their bag of beliefs, and they define themselves by that. So some Christians define themselves by having Jesus in their bag. And Muslim people have Allah and the Prophet Muhammad in their bag. And we as Unitarian Universalists have our own personal values, and we have our 7 principles in our bag. So there are lots of things you can have in your bag, but it's not just what you have in your bag, it's how you carry your bag. So there are some people in the world who are really scared about what could go in their bag and what can come out. So they close their bag up really tight and they hold it close to their chest so nothing can get in and nothing can get out. And there are some people who are much less concerned with that. And so they let their bag hang open and anything comes in and out and they don't pay attention to where it comes from and it just sort of drags along beside them. Some people are scared and also angry, and so they keep their bag closed, but they also use it like a weapon to hurt people. Now, as Unitarian Universalists, we usually like to keep our bag nicely open and in front of us. We like to be able to see what's coming in and what's coming out so that we can hold it up and examine it and see where it's coming from. Sometimes we look at something and say, well, that doesn't feel like it applies anymore, and so we set it aside. We also like to keep it open so we can share our beliefs and our ideas about the world with other people and share in our joy. And we like to look in our neighbors and see, what's in their bag? What have they learned about the world? Because We believe it's not necessarily what's in your bag that's the most important. It's what you do with those beliefs that is. Thank you. So, this morning we are going to begin something new a little bit, and I'm going to go over here to do that.
We light this second chalice so that as our children and youth go to their chapels, they carry the light of our flame with them. May it illuminate, inspire, and warm you as it does us. We now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which sustains this community and its mission to the larger world.
Thank you, Michelina. We're now going to kindle our candles of care for those who are most on our hearts and minds this morning. I did not get any specific requests for candles, but let's certainly kindle a candle for Sally Cleveland, who is mourning the loss of her husband, as well as Elaine Stevens, whose husband Floyd passed away last week, and the family of Elizabeth Keeler and all who are missing them today. Let's take a moment of silence as usual as well and give you an opportunity to say the names aloud of those you might be thinking of at this time. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion.
And now we will enter into meditation with these words. Let us open our minds to the challenge of reason, open our hearts to the healing of love, open our lives to the calling of conscience, open our souls to the comfort of joy.
I'm going to read an excerpt from a new book, The Coddling of the American Mind, by Greg Lukianoff and Jonathan Haidt. Some of you may have heard of Jonathan Haidt before. He wrote a bestseller called The Righteous Mind a few years ago. And I would like to tell you that this is a good book, but that would be objectifying my experience, my subjective experience of it. So I can tell you I'm enjoying the book. And that I think you might gain something from reading it yourself. I guess I should open it and read it. This is just a brief excerpt. The rider and elephant metaphor captures the fact that the rider often believes he is in control, yet the elephant is vastly stronger and tends to win any conflict that arises between the two. Emotional reasoning is the cognitive distortion that occurs whenever the rider interprets what is happening in ways that are consistent with the elephant's reactive emotional state, without investigating what is true. The rider then acts like a lawyer or a press secretary, whose job is to rationalize and justify the elephant's preordained conclusions, rather than to inquire into or even be curious about what is really true.
While the earth in its orbit circles the sun, a few humans are rich beyond dreams, dredging fossils, gassing the world as we split apart at the seam. The air is murky, there's smoke in the sky, and the temperature's not going down. The question's how long, as we roll along, can we ride on this merry-go-round? Will you be back from the fire next time, or be gone like dust in the wind? Apart we fall, together we rise. Which way will you go, my friend? The time has come to enlist everyone to help our planet survive. Gather round, every daughter, every son, rally or run for your lives. Native people will meet to decide just how their nation carries on. With 7 generations in their mind from the past and the ones to come. Will you return from the fire next time, or be gone like dust in the wind? Apart we fall, together we rise. Which way will you go, my friend? Where are the inventors, the guardians and sages who labor to redeem our days? Well, you're here in this hall, promoting such harmony, singing your hymns of praise. May we prevent the fire next time. May it vanish like dust in the wind. Apart we'll fall, together we rise. Which way will you go, my friend? Apart we rise, together we'll fall. Whoa. Together we'll rise. Tell me which way you'll go, my friend.
Pam, I have asked you about stealing the show before. Okay? Thank you so much. In 2017, in Wired magazine, an opinion article entitled, "Courts Are Using AI to Sentence Criminals. This Must Stop Now," written by Jason Tashia, a technology and justice consultant, argues against continuing to use computer algorithms to help courts make decisions about sentencing and parole and bail. He cites the example of Eric Loomis, a defendant found guilty in a drive-by shooting. During intake, Tashia says, Loomis answered a series of questions that were then entered into Compass, a risk assessment tool developed by a privately held company and used by the Wisconsin Department of Corrections. Although he doesn't deny Loomis's guilt, Tashia is concerned that he received, quote, a long sentence partially because of the high risk score the defendant received from this black box risk assessment tool. Now, Tashia uses a couple of strategies to support his opinion. He begins with an analogical example about an increase in trucking accidents along a stretch of road through the Ozarks that he attributes to GPS devices guiding drivers there, even though he says truckers familiar with the region know that Highway 7 is a safer route. The point Tashia is trying to make is that if GPS can lead us to make mistakes, so can artificial intelligence. Given that GPS uses global positioning satellites in real time, however, and AI is based on deep learning neural networks, his analogy is more like comparing a toaster to a Tesla. Other than both being machines, the two things don't share enough in common to really make this a reasonable comparison. Tashia's other argument against AI is that its algorithms are a proprietary secret. Only the owners, he says, and to a limited degree the purchaser, can see how the software makes decisions. In this case, he's arguing that they don't work because some of us don't know how they work. In logic, this demonstrates a common fallacy called ad ignorantium, an appeal. I know it sounds funny. Latin words sound a lot like English, right? So they make us laugh. But my favorite is ignoratio elenchi. People always think I'm joking when I make that one up, but it refers to irrelevant ends, like straw man and red herring, those sort of things. But anyway, ad ignorantium is an appeal to ignorance, which is committed whenever somebody argues something is false because it hasn't been proven true, or something is true because it hasn't been proven false. It's an argument from ignorance. To use an analogy, it's like saying that one doesn't believe in evolution because it's only a theory. For what it's worth, the state Supreme Court ruled against Loomis' appeal, reasoning that knowledge of the algorithm's output was a sufficient level of transparency, for what it's worth. I'm bringing this up not to argue for or against using AI tools in criminal justice, but as an example of how easy it is to get away with illogical thinking in our society. Comparing AI to GPS and claiming we don't understand it does not lead to Tashia's conclusion that AI is flawed. AI is flawed, but these are not good reasons to suggest it is. As a logician, my Tuesday night group hears me say this a lot, as a logician, I would be embarrassed to present such a case to the world, especially in a magazine so widely read as Wired. And if I were the publication's editor, I would be equally as embarrassed to publish such an unfounded piece of writing, even if it is presented as merely an opinion. It's often said that everyone has a right to their own opinion, but as Jamie White points out in his book, Crimes Against Logic, if the opinions to which we are entitled might nevertheless be false, the entitlement cannot properly be evoked to settle the dispute. Saying one has a right to their opinion should not be considered sound reason for having the opinion. Given there are more than 7 billion people on the planet, furthermore, and everyone's got one according to Dirty Harry, those precious few opinions expressed in our media ought to be well substantiated, which tragically, and I mean that word tragically, is not often the case. This may be so because logic is not something that comes natural to us. It's software, if you will, not hardware. Logic, like reading, writing, and arithmetic, needs to be learned. Unfortunately, it's not a subject that our schools are usually required to teach, even though it's been around for 2,500 years. Most of us grow up learning next to nothing about the rules of logic. In fact, if you Google the word logic today, you'll have to scroll past 3 pages of information about a rapper named Logic before actually getting to a definition of this ancient discipline. There are 2 kinds of thinking that do come natural to us. The first of these is called inductive reasoning, making decisions based on past experiences. It's based on the biological urge for repetition, that the more something has worked in the past, the more likely it is to work in the future, which is another kind of analogical reasoning. If it has rained almost every spring my entire life, then probably it's going to rain next spring. If our family has always had good luck with Labrador retrievers, then we'll probably have good luck with our next Labrador retriever. By the way, I've never had a Labrador retriever. Heard a lot of people have not had good luck with them. Here's another. Just throw this one in there. If the president almost always makes the worst possible decision, then his next decision will probably be pretty bad. Because it is so instinctive, I don't even think it's necessary to teach inductive reasoning, nor do I personally count it as logic. Even my dog, my Rottweiler mix, knows that if he stands at the door long enough, I'm going to get up and let him out, because I always do. Right? The behavior of all species is based on past successes, which is how evolutionary specification happens. All creatures are creatures of habit. The other kind of thinking that comes natural to us is called emotional reasoning, which seems like thinking to us because it disguises our feelings as thoughts, often putting us out of touch with our feelings. In this new book, The Coddling of the American Mind, Greg Lukianoff and Jonathan Haidt list, as you heard earlier, emotional reasoning as a cognitive distortion, used to rationalize and justify our conclusions rather than to inquire into or even be curious about what is really true. That's quite a statement. Because of our discomfort with cognitive dissonance, with there being many possibilities, that is, we can't imagine ideas beyond the ideas our emotions generate, and thus feel that we are being perfectly reasonable. As scientist or science journalist Jonah Lear says in his book, How We Decide, we all silence the cognitive dissonance through self-imposed ignorance. Biologically speaking, this is probably a better than not survival strategy, given that it helps ensure repetitive behavior. It's an inductive instinct that causes organisms to repeat themselves. Those behaviors that don't get them killed are the basis of evolutionary specification, meaning they come to shape and define a species. Repetition comes to shape and define a species, right? Its behaviors, its form, its genetics. If those same behaviors stop working at some point because of environmental changes, those individual organisms able to adapt will survive and populate the gene pool and eventually transition into a new species. All this works amazingly well without thinking, let alone without the need for logical thinking. But our species does think. We think thoughts, even if we don't think logically. We use ideas to make meaning out of almost everything, and we use them to make us feel safe and secure in a world of uncertainty. Our biology uses our ideas to do what biology has always done, reinforce repetitive behavior to increase our chances of survival. It does this by making us averse to new and different ideas, by rewarding our pleasure receptors with dopamine through the feeling of certainty. We innately want to protect our ideas from any doubt, even if it means silencing and oppressing those who think differently than we do. As neurologist Robert Burton says in his book on being certain, certainty and similar states of knowing what we know arise out of involuntary brain mechanisms that, like love and anger, function independently of reason. Now, don't miss the point here, that knowing we are right is based on subjective feelings, not objective reasoning, even though it feels like thinking. During my recent class at Singularity University, which I spoke about last week, for example, participants were asked to debate on this very issue of using AI to assist judges in sentencing decisions. Prior to doing so, a poll indicated that 68% of us favored using AI for this purpose, and 32% of us were against it. Afterward, the 100 or so participants were divided into small groups randomly assigned to argue either for or against. One participant from each side was then chosen to present their respective cases. After a little time to regroup, 2 others were selected to offer rebuttals. The person supporting AI counter-argued it already includes more variables than humans, can eliminate human bias in our courts, and will only improve with time. The individual countering against AI was caught off guard and had no time to prepare. But who needs time to prepare when emotional reasoning comes so easily? "Computers may keep the score," he exclaimed, "but we still want human umpires. Computers may fly airplanes, but we still want a human being to land the plane. Are we going to let machines replace humans?" At which point the room erupted into applause. People raised their fist in solidarity with humanity. And it became clear, based upon emotional rhetoric and an appeal to tribalism, who won that debate. When the audience was polled again, the number against using AI in sentencing increased by 9 percentage points. Afterward, I congratulated my new friend, Vivek Talwar, who is head of a $100 billion tile company in India, on his rhetorical skills, and joked that he could be the next Donald Trump. But I was also troubled to see how easily a group of highly intelligent and successful people can so quickly succumb to instinctive tribal, us against them, self-righteous, emotional reasoning. Although the debate was all in fun, emotional reasoning, or as I prefer to call it, rationalizing our feelings, wrapping our feelings in narrative, can lead to some pretty serious injustices. Our instinctive aversion to being wrong causes us to identify most with those who agree with us and to agree most with those who identify with us or we identify with, and to vilify those who don't. When our subjective emotions are considered objective truths, we moralize them and thus feel justified in demonizing, oppressing, and attacking those who disagree with us and our collective, what have become collectively our sacred beliefs. And unfortunately, I'm not merely preaching to the choir here. It's easy to believe emotional thinking is what others do, especially those we disagree with, because our own thinking seems so perfectly clear, so perfectly rational. But today, many aligning themselves with progressive values increasingly justify using violence against those with whom they disagree. There's an entire chapter in The Coddling of the American Mind making this very case. Such violence begins with concept creep. You heard of this? Some of you, it's a new term. It's broadening terms that have traditionally meant something very specific to include things outside of the usual definition. Today, for example, some are arguing that peaceful dialogue is a form of violence if it means the expression of dangerous ideas. And in a fire with fire mentality, it becomes justified to use physical violence against those violent ideas. In February of 2017, for example, Approximately 1,500 student protesters rallied against having right-wing provocateur Milo Yiannopoulos speaking at UC Berkeley, the birthplace of the free speech movement. The violent riots that ensued caused $500,000 in damages. One man carrying a sign saying the First Amendment is for everyone was hit in the face, leaving him bloody. Codling, and I'm going to refer to these two authors as Codling if you don't mind from here on out, reports. Others also suffered bloodying blows to the face and head as protesters attacked with fist, pipes, sticks, and poles. One woman was pepper sprayed on camera after speaking against the violence to a television reporter. A student reporter using his cell phone to record the event was chased down and beaten with sticks by protesters who called him a neo-Nazi. Since then, coddling continues. Many students on the left have become increasingly receptive to the idea that violence is sometimes justified as a response to speech they believe is hateful. A month later, on March 2nd, Charles Murray, author of Coming Apart, about the struggles of the white working class, tried to speak at Middlebury College in Vermont, but some were outraged because of his controversial book, The Bell Curve, in 1994, for which they accused him of being a white supremacist. During his speech, students shouted and chanted so he couldn't be heard. He was moved to another room so that he could live stream his speech, but they followed him, pounded on the door, and pulled the fire alarms. When political science professor Allison Stranger tried to escort him off campus, she was shoved by one protester and another pulled her hair so hard that she suffered a concussion and whiplash injuries. It took her 6 months of physical therapy. Another month passed and protesters at Claremont McKenna College near LA used similar tactics to stop other students from attending a speech by attorney Heather McDonald, author of a book entitled The War on Cops. They blocked anyone trying to enter the building to hear her talk. The police had to whisk her off of campus for her own safety. All three of these incidents occurred after the election, shortly after the election of Donald Trump, and could be taken as an indicator of the stress it has caused some progressives. But if we back up to September 2016 to consider what happened at Reed College in Portland, we must admit this disturbing trend can't be excused as a misguided response to an unsavory president. Reed is where campus activists spent more than a year trying to shut down a freshman humanities course because it focused on thinkers of ancient Greece and Eastern Mediterranean world who Codling explains would be considered white today. When some of them aggressively disrupted the class of Lucia Martinez Valdivia while she was teaching about the ancient Greek poet Sappho, an icon of feminism and lesbian liberation from the island of Lesbos herself, she informed them that she suffers from PTSD and asked them to please stop protesting in her classroom. Afterward, in an open letter, protesters said that her request creates a hierarchy of traumas where your traumas matter more. Although incidents like these have been increasing on campuses for several years by students on both the right and left side of issues, research indicates that between 2009 and 2013, attempts to disinvite speakers has become largely a tactic by left-leaning students and have included speakers like George Will, Madeleine Albright, Bill Maher, and Eric Holder. Since 2000, nearly half of the 379 campus disinvitation efforts have succeeded, and according to a 2017 survey, 58% of college students agree it's important to be part of a campus community where I am not exposed to intolerant or offensive ideas. That number is 63% if you count only those who consider themselves very liberal. Even more alarming is that some of these are using emotional reasoning to defend violence against those they disagree with. As a Berkeley op-ed put it, physically violent actions, if used to shut down speech that is deemed hateful, are not acts of violence, but rather acts of self-defense. Emotional thinking like this is nothing new. And as I said, it comes natural to us and has been used for centuries to justify violence against others. Fearing dangerous ideas, ideas that might cause us to question our feelings of certainty, has led to wars, inquisitions, holy crusades, heresy trials, persecutions, witch hunts, genocide, McCarthyism, the Cold War, and all manner of injustice. There is a technology, an ancient technology, that can help us see through the fog of such thinking, because it empowers us to see the fault in our own reasoning, as well as the fault in the reasoning of others. Perhaps this explains why there is often an emotional antagonism against logic, a visceral response against it that accuses it of being heartless, cold, and calculating. But look where emotional thinking has gotten us. Perhaps after 2,500 years, we could try logic. Just a little. And the kind of society I've been advocating for in this series, a society based upon the humanistic ethic, in which the sole criteria of everything we do, all of our institutions, our ethics, our laws, is human welfare and individual growth and fulfillment. Logic is absolutely necessary. For a society based upon this humanistic ethic must be founded upon love, which Erich Fromm defines as the sense of responsibility, care, respect, knowledge of any other human being, the wish to further that person's life. To respect, to see a person, because respect is the word to see, right? Spectacle, spectator. To truly see a person requires us to be objective, to step outside of our autistic subjectivity, beyond simply believing whatever the heck we want to believe, to view the world on its own terms, to let empirical reality impress itself upon us. Logic helps with this, whereas rationalizations, as Erich Fromm says, are essentially lacking this quality of discovering and uncovering. They only confirm the emotional prejudice already existing in oneself. Genuine reason, on the other hand, is a kindness. The reason behind many bad things that happen in our lives as individuals and society, my own logic professor, Dr. Wallace Roark, says, can be expressed in the words of a blundering friend of mine. I just didn't think about that. We have a moral and social as well as a prudential obligation to think about that. For Dr. Roark, thinking well is part of what it means to be ethical and socially responsible. It's part of what it means to be a caring person. Logic means being considerate and compassionate and thoughtful. Erich Fromm goes so far as to claim thinking is a form of productive love. And its function is to know, to understand, to grasp, to relate oneself to things by comprehending them. Fromm believes that knowledge is fundamental to love, that it underlies all types of love, and knowledge involves thinking well. It means being reasonable, being thoughtful. Reason, he says, penetrates through the surface of things to discover their essence, their hidden relationships and deeper meanings, their reason. After being violently attacked while trying to get Charles Murray safely off campus, Allison Stranger said, "What alarmed me most was what I saw in the eyes of the crowd. Those who wanted the event to take place made eye contact with me. Those intent on disrupting it steadfastly refused to do so. They couldn't look at me directly because if they had, they would have seen another human being." Love requires us to see others for who they really are, beyond our prejudices and subjective blindness. Logic enables us to be objective about our own beliefs so that we can more clearly see the reality of others, to discover their essence, their hidden relationships, but their deeper meanings, their reason. Imagine a society in which logic is required learning for everyone, in which TV news, newspapers, and magazines had logicians on staff who could easily check the soundness of their reports before they're broadcast or published. And this is not to say that we should now suppress illogical beliefs. Not at all. Only that we should be able to recognize and point out their errors, rather than presenting all opinions as equal. Although biologically the brain capacity of the human race has remained the same for thousands of generations, Fromm says, it takes a long evolutionary process to arrive at objectivity. That is, to acquire the faculty to see the world, nature, other persons, and oneself as they are, not distorted by our desires and our fears. He says, respect is like love. Because, he says, reason in this respect is like love, because like love, which allows us to embrace everyone, reason is a faculty that allows us to embrace the whole world with which we are confronted. Thank you.
Please rise for the final hymn of the morning, number 300, With Heart and Mind.
Purpose understood, a mortal search
Let us go forth now and do that which calls us to make this world more loving, more compassionate, and more filled with the grace of divine presence every day. Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum and shalom.
Shalom Haverim, Shalom Haverim, Shalom, Shalom, Shalom Haverim, Shalom Haverim, Shalom, Shalom.
Sorry? I don't know about his stuff. Yeah, I don't do his stuff.
Let's learn how to close this thing down.
Sorry?